Welcome to the Style Sports Hub, presented by UF Health Medical Group Orthopaedics.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Sports Hub podcast presented by UF Health Medical Group Orthopaedics. I'm your host, Kyle Coppola. I want to thank you for joining us today. Thank you to our partners, Lake Center Home Care, Lake Sumter State College, and United Southern Bank. Our podcast available on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and more. So check us out and subscribe. Really helps us out. Appreciate you guys being here today. Today, I'm joined by my special guest, Executive Director of Powerhouse Youth Project, Scott Chevalier. Scott, I want to thank you for coming on to the program today.
Glad to be here, Kyle.
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about. I want to first talk a little bit about your program. Of course, you're with Powerhouse Youth Project. What is Powerhouse Youth Project for those who don't know?
So the best way to describe Powerhouse is that we are an opportunity for students. We are on campus at our high schools, providing students experiences where they can take information and apply it to life. We want them to know why education is important, but beyond that, we want them to know what's your pathway. What is the experience you're going to take today in a classroom and now move it pursuing what you're passionate about. We call it passion, purpose, profit.
So there's so many kids these days who some of them struggle not only academically, outside of school as well, within the community. Maybe they have issues with their parents. Is that really what the program helps you out with?
It is. I mean, we look at students who we consider at risk. I typically tell a chamber group, I hate the term at risk because all children are at risk. If you think about it, it doesn't matter if you come from wealth or if you live in poverty. If you don't have a support system and you don't have a structure, you're at risk. You're at risk at quitting whatever position you are in life. You're at risk at not pursuing what you're passionate about, and you become an adult in our society who lives with regret. You are settling for a job, which we call in Powerhouse just over broke, rather than pursuing some skill or something inside of you that motivates you to get up every day that you want to be about in life. But yeah, when we talk about Powerhouse in our local schools, we talk about students who are struggling, who have not come to a grips with what they want to do after high school, or even if they can finish high school. Most of the kids we deal with have such low self-esteem, they don't have the confidence to even think about graduating one day with their friends.
So how do you instill that in them?
It's a hard process. We have to get them to trust us, and that's a difficult thing. When students have been let down, I call it the 4 Ps. Pastors, police, politicians, and of course, anyone in our society who's called a parent. If you've been let down by those 4 Ps, people that we were told growing up, you should trust these folks in your life, then your trust factor is very low. And so when we come into a classroom, they're immediately wondering, are you going to walk out too? Are you going to abandon me when I need you? And so we've actually had students tell us at the end of a session in the hallway, please don't leave us. And our comment back to them is, we won't leave you if you don't leave us. We want you to pursue this with us. So the trust factor is important. We have to get them to trust us. And then we build into them a concept of they are here for more than birthdays. It's more than turning 17 or 18, because most high school students are thinking about, when I get 16, I get my driver's license. When I get 17 or 18, I'm independent. Yeah. They don't think what they're going to do with that. And so once we get to that point of helping them understand that you're here for a reason, that you have skills, that you have qualities, and that you are not a mistake, that something inside of you can come out, it's a game changer. When the light comes on and they start to believe, you go from looking at the top of their head to looking at them eye to eye.
Yeah, and especially here in Lake County and just around the state of Florida as well, where we have so many students that are in that position, and not just students, but it's students who may not have graduated. Maybe they graduated and they're just sort of floating around. I think you had a story recently where you talked to a person who was right outside of an O'Reilly auto parts store. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, and it happens frequently. So talking to an assistant manager of an O'Reilly's auto parts store, finding out how old they are by looking at them, 23, 24, and just simply asking them the question, is this what you wanted to do with your life? Nothing wrong with that if it is. If that was your pursuit to be in the auto industry and it starts in retail, that's great, but what's the next step? I've never had that conversation where the person behind the counter said, yes, this is what I wanted to do with my life. There was something always that they wanted to do, but now they're stuck and they don't know what to do. And so they're a young man or a young woman who is in that forever seeking what they can do, but also stuck paying bills.
Yeah.
And so every day they have to come to work. they don't have time to think about what their pathway to purpose is. And so when I'm buying whatever I'm buying in the midst of a conversation, I have never had that person say, that sounds great, I would never do it. What they normally say is, I wish I'd have had that.
Yeah.
I wish somebody would have told me how to do that out of high school too. So that's one of the things, Kyle, that we're looking at doing is how can we create an out of the campus, off the campus Powerhouse experience in the community so that those 20-somethings who are in our community, and there are many of them, or even our homeschools who aren't on a campus to see what we're doing, could come on a Saturday and find out what their pathway to purpose could look like and find out what mentor could be in their life to get them to the next step.
And getting them to the next step is so important because we're in graduation season right now, and you have students that are graduating and everything. Your program is helping students in a lot more ways than just one.
Yeah, you know what? And right now it's very rewarding because I look at all the graduations that are happening. I've had a chance to speak at 3 graduations. Interesting enough, I actually did a virtual graduation. Wow. My niece graduated over in Sarasota from the Sarasota school over there.
Congratulations.
And it was pretty awesome to watch her because she was a foster child, adopted at birth, and my sister raised her all the way up to seeing her walk across the platform yesterday. And I know Reagan, and I've seen Reagan struggle with insecurity because of where she comes from, but to see the confidence in her eyes, amazing. What's powerful about that is I'm sitting watching my niece graduate, and I'm getting messages from Mrs. Lake County and Shakita telling me, hey, I see you're speaking at a Lee Academy's graduation tonight. And I said, well, it's great that my name's in the program. I hope you enjoy the video. So because of the beautiful videos, we were able to communicate to these kids at a Lee Academy how excited we were for students at a Lee who typically might not graduate, who really that is their last chance to have that stamp of I made it. And so to see 100% of the students we worked with walk platforms this past weekend.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing.
100%. Think about that too. Those are some incredible numbers because when you think about it as well, and we talked to Principal Randolph from Leesburg High School a couple of months ago. He gave a statistic that 7 years ago at Leesburg High School, they had a 67% graduation rate. That number went from 67% up to 87%. Due to a lot of things that, changes in the curriculum. They have the ACE program now for a lot of these students. Talk about some of that and sort of what you've seen as far as the changes in Lake County. I mean, I know there's still a lot of work to do.
Absolutely. And you just gave a great example. Mr. Randolph, I met him 3 years ago when Powerhouse relaunched here in Central Florida. And Mr. Randolph has changed, first of all, I would say, the atmosphere. There's an expectation. You don't meet Michael Randolph without him introducing himself as the proud principal of Leesburg High School. Well, that says something to students. Our principal wants to be here. He's not looking for just a job. He's here to see life change. And that trickles through the entire campus. So whether you're a teacher on faculty or a staff member, or whether you are like us, a nonprofit that's partnering with them, it becomes part of your DNA. That when you greet these students, you're part of a bigger picture. And he has set a new expectation for these students to know that dropout, that's not an opportunity for you. You are not going to find the easy way out of saying, I quit. You're going to say, I'm not quitting. I'm going to take the next step. And regardless of what I'm going to have to do, I'm going to find some pathway to get across that platform. So I think it starts with atmosphere. Powerhouse does that in our classroom. We don't have desks and chairs in our classroom. We don't have the traditional, I call it doctor lighting in the rooms. We don't have grades. We have opportunity where they can come in, sit in couches, a different environment where the room expresses the vision, whether anyone's talking or not. Our windows are wrapped, our walls are colored. There's phrases across the room saying what we believe because we want them to continually see it. It's almost like taking an 18-year-old out of high school to boot camp. When my son went in the Air Force, they take him to Lackland Air Force Base. The first thing they do is shave their head and beat them down to realize that they have to learn a different way of thinking. It's really the same way in Powerhouse. We don't beat them down and shave their head. We bring them in and give them hope. And so all of a sudden they become a new person. And they start to believe in themselves and believe in the process. And Mr. Randolph has told us that because of that, their belief in themselves and their skill sets have changed. Because when you start believing in yourself, you get connected to someone who can take you somewhere. That's the opportunity. All of a sudden you start to believe it is possible. That dream I had is something that can be a reality. So a 17-year-old student who wants to open their own beauty salon, who had no pathway to do it, all of a sudden now has a mentor in her life who actually has a salon. Wow. Communicating to her what the steps might be going to Lake Tech, getting your cosmetology certificate, so that I can start working under someone else and observe the process until I get to the point of building my own store.
Absolutely incredible. We're going to talk more about your curriculum as well coming up in just a minute, as well as what you have there on the table. We'll be talking about that in just a little bit on the Sports Hub next.
Is pain or restricted range of motion keeping you on the sidelines? Get back in the game with expert orthopedic care from UF Health Medical Group Orthopaedics. UF Health Medical Group Orthopaedics provides robotic-assisted surgical joint repairs and replacements, post-operative care, and inpatient rehabilitation services, all close to home, right here in Lake and Sumter counties. And for those unexpected injuries, UF Health Medical Group Orthopaedics offers convenient walk-in and same-day appointments. To learn more or to schedule an appointment with one of their specialists, call 352-323-5665.
Hey everybody, we are back on the Sports Hub podcast. Thanks for joining us. I'm joined today by Executive Director of Powerhouse Youth Project, Scott Chevalier. Scott, thanks for joining us once again.
Absolutely, Kyle. My pleasure.
Yeah, really learning a lot about the Powerhouse Youth Project, what you got going on there. Very inspirational. You're an inspiration to a lot of people, especially your program. I wanted to talk a little bit about the curriculum of the program and what you can expect for any kid who would go into it.
Yeah, so our curriculum starts with where kids are at. We meet them where they are, and then we have, in our mindset, keeping the end in mind. We know at the end of our 16 sessions, we want them doing career assessments. We want them to understand that there are more jobs in the world than doctor, lawyer, policeman, the typical jobs that we think about on a sheet of paper when you're going through high school. And so we're leading by trying to get them through all the obstacles that they are already formulating in their minds of why they can't get there. So we do sessions on excuses, on how not to procrastinate, how to have correct goal setting, things that are very practical minded that they can apply even to their class structure that they're in at the local high school. Yeah. But more importantly for us, to understand how that applies to life past high school. And so when we finally get to the career assessment, they're, number one, willing to take it with intensity, knowing there's an outcome. And that outcome is going to have something to do with who they are as a person, because we believe that your personality has a lot to do with what you might pursue in life. Yeah. And so if you're a really soft-spoken person and quiet, introvert, you probably aren't going to do a podcast like us today. Yeah. But if you're a person that high D or high I on the DISC survey, you start looking around and thinking about broadcast and announcing and all the different positions that might be available in life to you. And what we want them to know is, because every kid wants to be the high school football player, right? Wants to play in the NFL or the NBA, whatever professional sport. What we want them to know is, although you might not catch a pass on Sunday or slam a ball on Saturday on NBA, you might be able to be in that industry. That doesn't say your dream or your passion has to be put on hold. It just says, how do I find a position in that industry that I'm passionate about? Yeah. And so our curriculum leads them to that point. We added this year something I love. We call it career clusters. That's when we bring into the classroom 17 to 20 industry professionals from all of those industries, construction, business, marketing, whatever it might be, and they sit on a panel in front of our students. If we would do that in week 1, 2, or 3, it would be meaningless. Students wouldn't know what to say, wouldn't want to engage, wouldn't know how to communicate with them. But by week 16, when these panelists are in front of them, it's like a TV show. Yeah. Students are standing up with their questions. They're asking direct questions to people in the industry because they now understand that's somewhere I want to be. How do I get there? And so we've had students actually in that career cluster get offered a job by a panelist. Wow. So the communication starts back and forth, and you'll see the adult on the panel say, how old are you? And the student might say, I'm 17. And he goes, I'd hire a person just like you. And the student says back, well, I'd go to work for a person like you. Wow. And then they meet after class, and before long, he's hired.
That's incredible.
So there is that connection that happens even in the classroom.
Yeah. I love that. I love hearing about that, and that's incredible. Getting offered a job right on the spot. I mean, I'm sure that doesn't happen all the time, but
Right.
That's just the impact that you're having on a community, though, because some of these kids are coming in without hope. And then you give them hope, and that's amazing to see. You also have some stuff for us as well.
Yeah.
Talk about some of those things that you brought with you today.
Yeah, so everybody likes wristbands today. I typically introduce myself, and I have to be careful when I say it, that I'm a hope dealer. And I want them to understand that they can be one too. A hope dealer is someone who can help a student move from point A to point B, get them past their obstacle, or share their story of overcoming. And so when you become a hope dealer to a student, it says, I'm willing to share my story, to be invested in those students so that they can understand they too can achieve. They can move past wherever they are in their story and continue to write the end of it. And so we have a Hope Dealer coin. One of our partners is Lake Tech here in Lake County, and their CNC machine shop makes these for us. Has the Powerhouse logo on one side, and on the flip side it says Hope Dealer. And it has a scripture on here because it's a reminder to us, Genesis 50:20, that says basically what the enemy intended to harm us, God meant for good. Meaning, whatever bad has happened in your story, there can be a good outcome. And so we want kids to understand that. So we have everyone we meet with, and I brought that for you today, Kyle.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That you would have that to remind yourself. Oh, well, it reminds you that you are a hope dealer wherever you are, whatever platform you find yourself on, especially what you do for a living. You are communicating to some other generation. There's hope.
Yeah.
Hope is simply what is the next step and can I get there? And so when a person gives up that hope, that's typically when we see their mental distress, mental health becoming a major issue in our schools because no one's there to show them the next page.
Absolutely.
And they need to see there's a next day.
Well, as far you've been in this for quite a long time, since the 1990s, you've had this program and it's grown and grown and grown. You brought it into Central Florida. What are some of the best stories that and outcomes that you've had in your experience?
I'm going to give you a great story. So as soon as you said that, my mind immediately went to a young man from Nashville, Tennessee. So he was in the 6th grade at Portland Middle School. At that time, Powerhouse was providing all school assemblies, meaning we would come into a middle school or high school. We would do an assembly for the entire school, 1,000, 1,500 students. It was all about the power of choice. And so these students would come into an auditorium, sit on a gym floor, and they would hear a rock and roll show, 30 minutes of music. I would come out to speak for 20 minutes. It was all about how important your choices are. Just to show you how powerful the impact was. And I didn't even know this story until we started in Central Florida. When we announced that we were starting Powerhouse at Leesburg High School 3 years ago, I got a message on Facebook from a student in Nashville, Tennessee, who is now in his 30s. And he said, you don't know me, but I sat at Portland Middle School as a 6th grader on the floor. And you stood up and told the entire school that we had the power of choice. He was a foster child. Everything he owned was in a plastic bag.
Wow.
He would carry from home to home. And he tells the story, and I have it on video now to show his family, that he, in that gymnasium, found out for the first time that his choices had not been taken from him. That from that point on, he could take control of his choices. And he tells that story because he knows in the foster care system that abusees become the abusers. And if they never break out of that system, they become a product of the system. He now has 2 college degrees. He's a youth pastor in Ohio, married with 2 children. And he tells that story. And at the end of the story, he said, I'm excited for all the students who get to find out that they have the power of choice too.
Wow.
I think that story to me, when I started Powerhouse back in Central Florida, was the big motivator to say, although they may sit in the back of the room, are they really listening? And those students who sit there looking over their backpack or looking beyond their sunglasses, what's really getting in? It's that story that motivates me every day to walk into a classroom, regardless of the posture of a student, to communicate truth to them, to know they can make that next step. Because there's going to be a video from a student at Leesburg High School, at Umatilla High School, at Lee Academy, just like that one. They're going to come to us 5, 10, 15 years later that says it was a classroom at Leesburg High School that I knew how to set goals. I knew how to never quit, and here's the result.
And think about that, because that's just one example compared to all the people that you're impacting as well. It comes from one sit-down session. To just to listen. And I think a lot of people don't understand once they get into the program, just maybe one class can completely change their life.
Absolutely. We don't know a situation where a student could be sitting at that day where it could be their last day, where they have literally said, I'm not going to go another day. I can't make it another week, and I'm going to give up. And maybe suicide is on their agenda. And that happened many times in Nashville. One of the reasons that we shut Powerhouse down in Nashville after 7 years was that very reason. Every school we left, we received letters from students thanking us for being at their campus because that day was their last day.
Wow.
And it was because of an assembly, something said in a 55-minute assembly, that student made a decision to keep living. So we don't know where a student is every day. So when we go into the classroom, the goal there is to be an infusion of hope.
Yeah.
So that whatever their situation they're in, they get what they need that day to wake up another day.
There's so much negativity in the world these days, and trying to stay hopeful is one of those things. And of course, you preach that. And to know that you're having such an impact like that, because it's understandable that suicide's on the rise. You hate to see that, and you hate to even mention that. But it's a reality, and I'm sure that you've seen that reality, and you're hoping to, of course, change that reality. And I think that you're having a huge impact on that.
We hope so. I mean, that's our heart.
Yeah.
I want students to wake up every day excited about going to Powerhouse. I'll tell you a quick story. So this was Leesburg High School's graduation weekend. I received texts from parents from Leesburg High School students who were taking pictures of their students who 2 years ago, their goal was to be the first person in their family to graduate high school. Wow. And they sent pictures of their daughters and their sons in their diploma and their hat, cap, and gown with a smile from ear to ear. To me, that's amazing because these are students, if someone wasn't there to say, you can do this, we don't know where they might be today. And I like to think of it this way. 80% of those incarcerated today in our prison system are high school dropouts. When we think about that on every graduation happening this weekend and last weekend, how important it is for them to achieve that graduation moment. We already know statistics tell us that if you get a high school diploma, you are more likely to succeed at whatever you do. And it's an easy reason why. It's not because you passed a test. It's not because you had a 3.5 GPA. It's because you accomplished a task. And when you accomplish a task, we all feel good.
Yeah.
And we look at the next task and we say, if I did that, I can do this. And that's where we need to get students to.
Absolutely. We're going to take one more quick break. We'll come back and talk more with Scott Chevalier in just a moment.
Nobody wants an aging family member who is unable to care for themselves to be home alone. Lake Center Home Care believes the best healing happens when you are most comfortable. The company provides exceptional personal care in the comfort and privacy of your own home. Whether you need skilled nursing, physical therapy, home health aides, or companion services, your loved ones will enjoy peace of mind knowing you're being taken care of and treated with respect and dignity. Lake Center Home Care is locally owned and managed with a team of highly qualified professionals who are passionate about taking care of their neighbors. Call 352-315-0050 or visit golchc.com to learn more about this amazing company.
Hey, everybody, we are back on the Sports Hub podcast. Thanks for joining us today. Talking right now with Scott Chevalier. Scott, thank you for coming on to the program. It's been very insightful talking to you about the Powerhouse Youth Program that you have in our county. Very important, though, that I wanted to stress is how we get Powerhouse Youth involved in more programs in Lake and Sumter County.
Yeah, great question. And we're getting phone calls right now from South Lake, North Lake, because of some exposure we just got. We got Nonprofit of the Year here in Lake County, which is an amazing award, but it's opening up doorways of schools looking at us and going, how can we get that? What we need more than anything right now, we need people to get behind us as donors financially. We try to keep our costs down. We don't have brick and mortar office space because our office space is on the campus. What we need is to be able to pay our trainers. We want to have quality trainers in our classrooms, and so we also outfit our classrooms. So getting people financially behind us, business leaders who can come behind us as corporate sponsors and saying, we want to be a part of that, because that vision then expands to the whole campus. Leesburg High School started with 50 students. Mr. Randolph, if you ask him, he wants every kid at Leesburg High School to have a Powerhouse experience. Unfortunately, we can't put a trainer in there 5 days a week, but we'd love to. but we have to get to the point where we can financially do that.
How do you find trainers as well, and how do trainers get involved with the program?
First thing we look for is passion. So we're not going to put anybody in front of these kids who aren't passionate about these kids. You know, I tell people this all the time. Information without inspiration doesn't give you transformation. There has to be an inspiring ability of a presenter to get in front of these students who are passionate about who they are. So once I find that, then we sit down with them and literally we audition a trainer. So we might give them a subject, tell them to walk out of the room, think about that subject, come back in, and in 90 seconds, tell me how you would communicate that subject to a group of students.
Wow.
We want to know that they can think on their feet. We want to know that they can communicate and understand who their audience is. Because you can be a great communicator and not know your audience and have a lousy classroom experience.
Yeah.
And so we're not looking for burnout teachers. We're looking for people who walk into a classroom believing the best in these kids and believing the outcome is greater than where they are right now.
One of the things that I love that you have on your website as well is every choice will cost you something. That is a very unique quote, and you know that can be taken a lot of different ways. What does it mean to you, and how do you translate that?
It's an interesting statement because that is where Powerhouse began, and it is today still the foundation of Powerhouse. So I look at students this way. There are many things that we own in life that have value. Our cars, our homes, our property, our bank account, our investments, if we have a good portfolio in the stock market. Today, that's not so well, but if you did have it. But I tell them this, there's one asset you have that is more valuable than all those things. It's your choice. No one takes your choice from you. It doesn't matter where you live, how you grew up, or where you are right now. You still possess the power of choice. And so when we look at the phrase, every choice will cost you something, typically a student in a high school setting, especially an at-risk student, is going to think about the bad decisions they made in life. I was late to class, I was tardy, I got detention. I got kicked out of school for a fight. I was late all the time and became truant, and I didn't get to graduate. It's always the negative side. But what we tell students this, even the positive choices cost you something. If you want to build a business, you need to learn to build relationship. You need to learn to invest time with other people so that you can begin to communicate what you want to accomplish. That will cost you something. And sometimes getting past the negative thoughts moves you in a direction to say, maybe I should put all my energy in the positive side. One of the ways to look at that is this. Look at a student and tell them, everyone in this room is not as concerned about your success as you are. And so think about who you're hanging out with. Are they bringing you down, or are they pushing you forward? Are they lifting you up, or are they holding you back? It's those kind of decisions that a student has to make in high school so that they can look around and say, I believe in what I'm passionate about, and I'm going to make choices that are going to push me forward.
How did you make the choices to push you forward in life?
You know, that came through a student one day in the front row, and it came in this kind of, they asked it this way. As we were talking about passion, purpose, and profit, the student was sitting right in front of me, and students were sharing what their passions were in the room, and a student looked at me and said, Mr. Scott, what's your passion? And I paused for a moment, looked at the entire room, looked back at him, and I said, you are. It was people in my life, football coaches, people that I worked in the working environment, who looked at me and said, you're not going to quit. I was the center on my football team, and I'm only 5'10". And so my legs had to be the strongest part of my body. And I remember Coach Leedy coming up to me. He was shorter than I was, grabbing my face mask when I missed a block or let someone tackle our quarterback, and yell at me and tell me, you're going to make that block. You're going to be better at what you did the last play. And it's those inspirations that kept me going. I built my life based on those, that I look back and see those small victories to know that every moment is a chance and a choice. And I can enter every decision by either making the right one or the wrong one. And they're going to propel me forward or they're going to hold me back. And so choosing at a young age to put people around me who believe in who you are and support your vision for what you're doing. And I even choose to do that today, Kyle. I mean, I try to put people around me who are positive. I don't want to listen to the people who say our schools are a mess, our kids are a mess. I look at them and say, but we can change it.
Yeah.
And when we have that mindset, you want people around you to understand that your choice today makes a difference. And I can get up today and make that choice myself. So it's something I deal with, not just the students every day.
Last question I have for you, Scott, is your hope for the future and what you're hoping for in the next couple of years out of Powerhouse. And as you look toward the future, because, I mean, you're going to be hopefully around for a long time, but we want these kids to either give back to the community, give back as well. We always talk about giving back. What is your hope for the future?
Yeah, so my personal desire for Powerhouse and for myself is to continually grow Powerhouse, and I say it this way, grow gracefully. Would I like to be in every Lake County school today? 100%. My answer would be yes. And then my board of directors would say, whoa, hold back. We don't want to grow in such a way that we're not effective. And so we want to make sure we have enough trainers to do what we're doing. We don't want to water down the curriculum. We want to make sure every experience for a student is top notch. We want to make sure the classroom is set up right. We want the students to be proud of what took place. If I had a crystal ball today and I were to look into the future, we would be in every Lake County school and writing a curriculum for middle school students so that we can start the mindset in a middle school student before they get to the high school experience. Because I think that's important for them to start thinking about, what is my career path? And even at a younger age where I may be a little bit more immature, I can begin to think about concepts. So I would see the future as a middle school program, all the high schools in Lake County, and then there would be career development available every weekend here in Lake County, where students, regardless if they're in high school, out of high school, homeschool, can come to a Saturday Powerhouse experience, not just get trained in our sessions, but also get connected in our sessions, so that we're all the time looking for those business leaders who say, I can't find people. Powerhouse would be a great HR development organization that says, we'll train the young people with the right mindset. You teach them the skill in the profession that they need to work in.
Absolutely. Scott, thank you for coming on to the program. Very insightful. Just amazing what you're building at Powerhouse as well. Any final thoughts?
No, I thank you, Kyle, as a leader in the community and giving us an opportunity. This microphone gives us the opportunity to get our voice out. And I always close with this and think about this phrase because it means more than a quote to me. You'll see it on my social media. You'll see it every time I speak. It says this: our youth are our nation's greatest asset. If we really believe that in our communities, from the councilman to the county commission to the Senate to the Congress, if we believe that, then invest in it. If we believe our kids are our future, then we have to give them a pathway to purpose. No doubt about it. Well spoken. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate you coming on. That's going to do it and wrap it up for this edition of the Sports Hub podcast presented by UF Health Medical Group Orthopaedics. I'm your host, Kyle Coppola. I want to thank you for watching today. Thank you to Lake Center Home Care, Lake Sumter State College, United Southern Bank. Our podcast available on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and more. So check us out and subscribe. It really helps us out. Want to thank Executive Director of Powerhouse Youth Project, Scott Chevalier, for coming on one final time. And we'll see you on the next edition of the Sports Hub podcast.
This has been the Style Sports Hub, presented by UF Health Medical Group Orthopaedics.